Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Robert Baylor, Director of Communications at NUCA. Welcome to our latest webinar. First, before we begin, some webinar housekeeping. Next slide. Today's webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be provided to all registrants and attendees. It will also be available in the next few days on NUCA's YouTube channel, which can be accessed via nuca.com. Now about your WebEx Meetings webinar screen. There are two buttons on the lower right-hand side of your screen titled Participants and Chat. Clicking on Participants gives you a list of webinar attendees. You can chat amongst each other, or you can send the host questions or messages. All participants are muted upon entry. Phone participants can use *6 to mute and unmute themselves. Questions will be asked at the end of the webinar. To ask a question, you can submit a written question at any time using the chat feature, and I will read those written questions to our presenter at the conclusion of his presentation. Now let's get started. Next slide. March's NUCA webinar is about saving your time and increasing your profits with better personnel, scheduling, and equipment management. We're starting today's webinar by asking our attendees a simple question. How is your company monitoring and investing in its two biggest assets, your people and your equipment? In today's very competitive construction industry, it's more important than ever a business leader has access to pivotal information at a moment's notice. This information is going to allow you to more easily make those strategic decisions that lead to successful and profitable project completion. Our presenter will be Chris Porter, Construction Solutions Manager at Prophix Software. As the leader of the construction team, Chris is responsible for ensuring that construction businesses understand how corporate performance management, CPM, software help to better manage their projects to gain a deeper understanding of their data and make better business decisions. In Chris's 10 years with Prophix, he has consistently taken on greater responsibilities in a variety of roles, including consulting, sales, and channel partners. Chris is passionate about helping people improve the pace of their business through the power of automation. Thanks so much for joining us today, Chris. I turn the webinar over to you.
Thanks, Robert, and thank you to the whole NUCA organization for providing us with this opportunity and the sponsorship of today's webinar. Thank you for everybody who's taken the time out of their day today to join, and for those who may watch in the future. Again, we really appreciate your time and interest in what we have to say today. So at the end of the day, this conversation, this webinar is about resources, and the number one resource we can't look beyond are our people, right? And people, in analyzing how to manage your people, couple that together with how you manage your equipment, how you manage your materials, the strategies in which you employ are truly transformational and can really have an effect on your bottom line. These are some of the most important decisions you can make as an organization, whether it be how do I track the time that people are spending, how do I track where they are, how do I track where I'm going to need them in the future and make those decisions in terms of where I need resources, where I don't need resources, and etc. These are pivotal things to running your business, and especially for utility contractors. We all know this, though. We all know that labor in particular has been and will continue to be the number one area of concern in the market, in the construction market. And ultimately, this is not going to change. The statistics year after year, the enrollment in trade programs year after year are not where they need to be relative to the demand of the industry as a whole. But it's no different than equipment and materials. Every single contractor on the call today owns equipment, has materials, and you need to ultimately understand, how am I utilizing these materials and equipment? What's the idle time of that? Idle time is pure and 100% cost. Rental rates, if you own pieces of equipment that you then rent out in a project or for a job, what are those rental rates and how frequently am I checking them? How frequently am I seeing my assumptions against my actuals to determine, am I making money? Am I break even? Or am I potentially losing money on my equipment? How do I, anticipate for material delays, material cost increases? That's been certainly an effect of the pandemic, has been material supply chains and material costs as a whole. And so again, labor, materials, equipment, it's all about resources. It's all about resource strategy in your business. And so with that, what are 4 strategies, practical, non-theoretical strategies that you can employ in your business to hopefully maximize profits in 2021? Well, the first, and honestly, probably one of the most obvious ones, is task level productivity tracking. You know, we all know how long something should take. You build an estimate of time for a task, but how frequently are we actually looking at that and analyzing those tasks and comparing them to sort of the book number, if you will? And so this is something that if we have the right technology to be able to track the productivity level at a task level, we can ultimately have, over a large sample size, a fairly significant impact on profitability. If things are actually taking less time, that's fantastic. Our realization and our profit on that work is actually better. But conversely, if things are not taking as long, if they're taking longer, that's an immediate area for concern. That's an area that we would call margin fade on a job if something is taking longer than we expect it to actually take. And so technology has its role in there. Technology has a role in helping you look at the data from the field and understanding, what's the ticketing system saying? What's the timekeeping system saying? What's my project management system saying? There's a slew of different applications out there that can really help you as an organization track this productivity level at a task level. Ultimately, cost pressures are just going to continue to intensify, and so if you're able to incentivize your field, your people that are out there in the field working, to be able to be more productive, you can potentially, start to work on some, compensation approaches where you can actually incentivize the field to be able to be more productive, right? And so ultimately, that's a win-win across the board, for no matter what the scenario is. Now, at the same time, someone might say to you, well, I can only do things as fast as I can, right? I can only do things as fast with the quality that you need. So how can we actually be more efficient? It's not about being, quicker and faster. It's about being more efficient. And so again, technology has its role there. Whether it's field systems, GPS systems, better surveying systems that are out there. These are all things that can help be more efficient. Robotics is actually taking on a bigger and bigger role. Big data, as a utility contractor, the data that's coming back on all of these systems. It's huge. It's massive amounts of usage data that's coming back. And again, we can utilize technology as a means for being more efficient, to be able to do things quicker and faster and easier through technology without sacrificing quality. As a result, this can really help, with your brand image, the experience of the people you're doing the work for. Doing things faster, better, and easier seems like a bit of a pipe dream, but it's frankly true. Technology plays a huge role in our daily lives. It certainly is, an area, as Robert said, using platforms like WebEx continues to make things easier. So if someone's out in the field, you can jump on a WebEx, you can share screens, you can look at what somebody's looking at in the field. You don't have to make a trip and drive out there. There's a lot of little things that are, can really add up when it comes to doing efficiency improvements. And then finally, scheduled time reduction. We want to kind of look at this and say, can we actually be better at scheduling our labor into the future? Can we better schedule our equipment into the future so that we don't then get to today and realize, oh, I need a person on this job, or I need that piece of equipment, or I need that material. If we can better schedule and forecast and foresee what's going on in the future, as organizations, we will have more predictable results. We will have less idle time in our businesses. We will minimize the amount of waste of materials and waste of equipment time that is happening within our businesses, and ultimately, hopefully, improve safety as a result. Now, there's one thing as well, the other strategy I would really encourage people to employ is plan, execute, and adjust. It's kind of almost the same as your budget versus actual and your variances. We do this on income statements, we do this on balance sheets all the time, where we see the actuals, we see the budget, we see the variance, right? Well, what a novel concept that is. Why wouldn't we do that for everything that we estimate or everything that we forecast? If we do this more frequently, if we're analyzing and looking at the plan, what we executed, and comparing that information together, whether it's the labor hours, the equipment hours, the material prices that we're paying, the more frequent that we do that, the better off we will be. No longer can we afford as organizations to just look at monthly variances between actuals and estimate or actuals and budget. We just can't do that anymore. We need to make this more of an iterative process so that you can actually monitor expectations and estimates every single day. And then the final thing, really, the final strategy is, take what we've learned from the past year, from the past 16 months, and using collaboration platforms and using better workflows. Use that, just harness the collaboration that you've learned, and everything that you've learned from working remotely. Harness that and look at that into the future, and invest in these things, right? Think about the number of things that as organizations we had to stood up, we had to stand up this year in 2020 and then now in 2021. The amount of technology and processes and infrastructure that we had to set up as reactive measures to the world that we live in today. If we can actually be more proactive and think into the future, invest in technology, invest in better ways of collaborating, ultimately, we will be more prepared for the future, right? And so collaboration and real-time analysis are things that I just truly, honestly believe will be pivotal roles in organizations moving forward. Again, no longer is like monthly or weekly analysis enough. People need to know daily analysis of the work that they're doing. What happened yesterday? What's going to happen today? That's the level of analysis we need to get to, because by the end of the week, by the end of the month, it's too far gone, right? It's too far along. And so we need to empower our on-site workers. We need to empower the people that are making decisions with meaningful, active data that's happening as we speak, right? So again, these are the really key pivotal areas that I believe organizations can truly practically employ in their business in 2021. Technology is key in all of this, right? Technology plays a huge role. So whether it's how do we have to make behavioral changes? I talk about technology, I say it'd be great, get technology, get applications to help make your business better, more efficient, etc. But you have to really consider, what are the behavioral changes and the process changes that you need to think about before you go buy and implement that software? How am I going to get people to use this? That without usage, without adoption, it's just a waste of money. And so these are things that, as much as, as a software vendor, I want to say, yes, buy software, invest in technology, it will make your business better. And practically speaking, it will, but you definitely need to consider the behavioral and process changes that come with something new, right? Human beings, generally speaking, don't like change. And so this is something that, we have to all consider when we're looking at applying any of those four strategies, or any of the, technologies that organizations might be thinking about looking at for 2021. And so with that being said, as Robert said at the beginning, Prophix is a corporate performance management vendor. And that probably doesn't mean a whole lot to a lot of people. There's all these little subsegments of software, and CPM, or corporate performance management, is one of them. But when you boil it down, ultimately, what does CPM do? It does budgeting, forecasting, and reporting, right? That's what we do, right? So whether it's financial reporting, resource reporting, quarterly forecasting, cash flow forecasting, et cetera, that's what we do. But ultimately, what's the problem that we're here to solve? So before I jump into the demo, I just want to give you a brief overview of what is CPM. And so ultimately, this is the problem that we solve, this visualization of data sources going into spreadsheets, right? And we all know what that means. We all know the headaches and the late nights that are associated with what you see here today. And ultimately, by using spreadsheets, you have all of these propensities for error. You have a scalability issue where you only have a bunch of people that know how to make them work. But more importantly, like I said in the strategy session, you need to be able to employ people to be able to be autonomous and to get analysis, to get data every single day. No human being is going to be producing analytics and producing reporting and facilitating collaboration every single day on their own. You have to throw a lot of people at that. And so ultimately what CPM can do is connect to those various data sources, bring it into a central single version of the truth that effectively changes it from being it's all in a bunch of different disparate spreadsheets to it's all in one platform. So your timekeeping, your scheduling, your accounting and ERP systems, every single system, you no longer have to log into that system to get the data and get the analytics. You will simply log into those systems to enter the transactions, to enter the orders, but then ultimately go to Prophix to be able to actually do the analysis on those data sets, as well as doing the budgets, doing the forecast, doing the projections. And so ultimately that's what we do. And so whether you apply that to your financial statements, your annual budgeting, your WIP reporting, your time and attendance reporting, it's all under one roof now, one platform that everybody can use. So without further ado, I just want to jump on in here to our presentation and our demonstration here today. And so as we switch on over here, you'll be notified that we are now in Prophix. So Prophix is a web-based application. And when you first log in, you're presented with a dashboard and a dashboard that's meaningful to you. So every user can choose and pick which dashboards they like the best. You can configure your own, of course, but then on top of that, every user is blanketed by their own personalized security. So ultimately, one of the things that people spend a lot of time doing in Excel is just taking out data people shouldn't see. So the system's doing a lot of that for you. Now, as it relates to jobs and resource management, we scroll down here on our dashboard and we are presented with, and this is a PM user, by the way, Wilson Fisk, he's a project manager. He can see his 3 jobs. So his 3 jobs, what are the scheduled hours to date? What are the actual hours to date? And then if we come down on here, he can see also what are the different pieces of equipment that he is using or not using in the idle time on those same jobs. So we have a pretty good understanding, again, of the resources, of the labor, of the equipment, and the materials of all of the jobs that Wilson's in charge of. Now, of course, there's some other components here today, which we won't go into. Maybe if we have some more time, we can take a look at some of the other areas, but I do really want to focus on the resources. Now, if we take a look at this, though, it's pretty clear to me that we're having some discrepancies. There's some differences between scheduled and actual. Now, one of the inherent challenges with a lot of visualizations is they're just visualizations. This is just a bar chart. I can hover over different things, I can see what's going on, but ultimately there's only so much that I can glean from a bar chart, from a donut chart. And so what is our answer to that? Our answer to that is being able to right click on any number of these areas of the application and going to this link icon. So what the link icon is going to do is it's going to bring me into a supporting report that will then give me all of these next level of detail that I would be looking for. So if you take a look at this, we can see all of the job that I right clicked on, and we can see our total hours and our current month hours. Now, obviously we didn't do any work in January, so let's flip it over to February. And as we jump into February, we start to see what actually happened in the current month. So in comparison to my total job, in comparison to my scheduled hours, and then my variance, what's going on here, right? So there's definitely a couple of key areas where on this job, we had 60 hours not completed by crane operators and 20 hours not completed by apprentices. The electricians, good for them. You know, they haven't started on the job yet, right? We got to get the posts up. But as we move forward and continue to progress, we can see great. Our electricians, our utility guys, they're doing a good job. They're actually doing more work than what we scheduled them to be on. And as we kind of move forward here in the data, you can start to see that there's some commentary in here, which is great. People are, putting in comments about what's happening. And again, all of this is made possible by us connecting to the scheduling data set and the actual timekeeping data set. Two different data sets brought together into one report. And so again, it's really giving me the ability to see the information that I'm looking for. But what I would really love to know is, who are those crane operators, right? Who are those electricians that are doing such a great job and doing more work than they were scheduled for? Who are those people? And so again, rather than having to go look for a report, we build the guided path of analysis for the end user to be able to come into here, into a subsequent report, not having to know, where is this next report? Can you send that to me? I can simply just right click and it's going to bring me to the most logical next step. And I can see my crane operators. So let's take a look at them. Well, Dominic, he didn't do 40 hours here, but he actually did 16 more hours on this other job. So that's good. That, I guess, he worked on another job, but maybe I wasn't aware of that. And same thing here, August, 30 hours instead of 50, but did 4 hours more in this other job. And so now, again, we're getting down to those lower levels of detail where we can actually start to take action, right? We can't just take action and say, great, crane operators or electricians or service workers, whoever, we have a discrepancy, but who are those people, right? How do we now take action? How do we then say, all right, well, let's go to the PM or the super or whoever their manager is, and then now let's take action, because we know who they are, and we know that we can schedule or move the schedule around into the future. So now that I know this, right, how can I take action on this? Well, that's where CPM really plays a key role, because unlike true and strict analytics, where we're just really talking about reporting, Prophix plays a role in the forecasting and budgeting world as well. So if I go down to my workflow tasks, and this is kind of coming back to strategy number 4, collaboration and workflow, organizations need not send reports out, need not send templates out or budget templates out for people to fill out. That's a thing of the past. Instead, with a properly structured workflow, I can send reports through our system, which will send a notification and say, hey, what's going on with this job? Why do we have 40 hours, less labor than we anticipated? Or, hey, I need you to update your labor forecast. So again, now that I saw that there's 2 people who are doing less work on the job I needed them to, what should I do? What should I do next? And so the next most logical thing that I can do in Prophix is actually update the labor forecast. And so that's what I can do in a template like this. Now, all templates in Prophix, all reports can be customized and changed. We use the same formatting and templating as Excel, so it's really easy to adjust and make it your own. But as we scroll down here to the crane operators, again, we can see what was scheduled, because that's what we're looking at. But we also now can maybe make some adjustments into the future to be able to combat that and change those things. So why don't we do this? Why don't we change, this person, instead of working 80 hours here, because this was Dominic, remember, he was the guy who we needed more hours from. Why don't we start to change around some of these hour allotments and readjust the schedule? And as a result, hopefully, come March, April, and May, things will start to look a little bit more as we need them to, right? Our resources will start to get moved around into the buckets that we really need them to. So I can do this, and it seems like a simple task, right? Just entering data, but inherently strict analytics or business intelligence doesn't allow you to do this. CPM allows you the ability to forecast, to budget, to project into the future. And so now that I've done that, I've updated the scheduled hours, maybe I want to now see what would those people's billings be. So the system will now convert those hours together with their bill rate to be able to see what their billings are going to be. So again, I went from a dashboard to a top level job report to a individual employee report, and now I'm able to take action to be able to adjust where those people will be spending time into the future. Now, there's a couple of other quick areas before I quickly jump over to the equipment side of things. But as we keep moving down here in the analytics journey, we can look at our employees by crew, right? Everybody has crews. But we also have some great reporting to be able to allow you just to see kind of a bit of a heat map of all of your different labor across all of your jobs, and to be able to see, ultimately who's green, who's red, what's going on with those individual resources. So before I end the demonstration, I also really want to talk quickly about equipment, because we all have equipment, we all have materials. And one of the key things we do seemingly on an annual basis is we look at our equipment and we determine, what are the rental rates, right? What rate am I going to rent this piece of equipment out to my jobs, to my customers, and the people I'm doing work for? And so Prophix allows you to build that logic, those calculations. And so these are all of the different pieces of equipment that I own, looking at the internal rate, the operating rate, the ownership rate. And basically, we've modeled that to allow you to now compare these assumed values together with your actual values to be able to truly kind of start to understand what's going on with your pieces of equipment, right? And so whether it's rental rate analysis or whether it's kind of looking together at some of the maintenance and repair reporting, again, totally different data set, but we can actually start to look and see, where are we spending the majority of our maintenance and repair money on these various pieces of equipment. All right, so the final thing I'm going to show you just as a bit of an Easter egg is, when it comes to analysis in Prophix, what makes it special? And the thing that I'm going to just point out as a quick Easter egg in today is WIP reporting. Everybody has WIP, everybody has jobs that they're working on. But the ultimate thing that most organizations struggle with when it comes to understanding their jobs is the fade, margin fade. Everybody experiences it. But ultimately, at this level of analysis, it's just not possible to truly understand what's going on with the job. Where is the fade occurring? If we think back to our scheduling issue, we only knew that there was, a crane operator category that was having issues in terms of scheduled and actual hours. So again, it's that not enough detail to be able to take action. And so what Prophix allows you to do for every report in the system is it allows you to right click and go to Analyze. Analyze then takes that same great report and provides you with a free-form canvas to be able to start to slice and dice. So if there isn't a report to then go to, like the linked report style, if there isn't something to guide you to that next report, don't worry, you can actually get to your answer on your own. And so by simply now taking the phases of the job, so now we have all of our individual phases, and then taking our actual versus estimate of cost, I now have an ability within a couple of seconds and at 2 clicks and drags, now I can actually see where the fade is occurring. I could see the specific stages of the job or the areas or the fields that are actually causing the fade. So again, I'm getting down to further levels of detail to get answers for what I'm looking for. And then within those phases, I can drag my cost codes onto those phases. And I can see that in the excavation phase, it's a combination between labor and permits. In the forming phase, it was subcontracts. And in the grading phase, it was, oh, company equipment. Well, gee, what happened there? And so ultimately, by using the application similar to a pivot table, I'm now able to get to these answers quickly and easily because of the data just all being in one system. So without further ado, I'm going to jump on back here. I would encourage you as I wrap up here to submit your Q&A. Hopefully that presentation and some of the strategies will help you and your organization here in 2021, and you learned a little bit about Prophix. So Robert, how are we doing for questions?
Thanks, Chris, for that absolutely fascinating presentation. Reminded me of some of my Lean Six Sigma studies, especially in that last part, trying to
Yeah.
figure out where something was going wrong. Let's open the webinar to questions now. You can use the chat feature to submit a question, and I'll read the question to Chris. Or if you prefer, you can unmute yourself, state your name and company, and ask the question directly. Remember to please remute yourself after you finish. I did have one quick question that was submitted earlier to me. Chris, is there a limit to the amount of data systems we can integrate? For example, we use an accounting system or ERP scheduling and project management tool. Could they all be integrated?
Yeah, that's a tremendous question. So one of the luxuries of being a 32-year-old business at Prophix is our number of systems we've worked with over the years. So we have integrations with over 250 different applications. And again, one of the key features or functionality of the application is the ability of it to connect to various data sources so that you have a one-stop shop for all your data. And so we can connect to virtually any system that you can get your data out of. So whether it's SQL, it's Oracle, it's an SAP-based application, whatever you may be using, the quick and easy answer is, can you get your data from it today? Great, we can get it from there too.
Another question, you were going through the labor rates. I thought that was fascinating in terms of being able to track that, especially so granular. The other question that was sent in, is there a way to budget for seasonal or temporary staff?
Oh yes, that's a great question. I didn't show it today, but yes, definitely. There's an area of the input for template there where you can add in temporary and seasonal staff as well. And Prophix has some really unique functionality to allow you to calculate, hourly rates, salaried rates, benefits, 401k, union dues, some very strong calculations to be able to get those costs correct.
And let's open the floor to other questions as well too, either chat or you can just unmute yourself and ask it. Don't be shy. This is the time to ask Chris, the expert. And if not, we'll go to the last question that I see. Can we automate any reports that go to project managers about backlog?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really great feature. In addition to actually logging into Prophix to get your reports, there's a functionality called a report binder where you can package together reports into a binder, and you can set up a schedule where those reports will automatically go out right to people's inboxes on a scheduled basis that you determine.
And I think that might be it for questions. If no one else is jumping aboard, let's go and wrap it up. Chris, thank you very much for your time today to present this absolutely fascinating information to our guests. We would also like to thank our new NUCA associate member, Prophix, for their kind support of NUCA and our educational webinar series. Today's webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be provided to all registrants and attendees. A recording of this webinar will also be made available on the nuca.com website and our YouTube channel over the next few days. And thank you for your time today to join us for Webinar Wednesday and for supporting NUCA. Our next NUCA Webinar Wednesday will be held on April 7th, sponsored by another NUCA national partner. We couldn't provide our membership services without their help. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and please enjoy the rest of your week.